Hello guys, this is what if Naruto had dormant power, so let's get start D. Get away from my store you brat. Geez, I just wanted to buy a shirt. The blonde child walked away in a huff and moved away from the store. As he did so, several more people glared at him and gave him unfriendly looks, and all he could do was look back and laugh as he moved away to find something else to do. However, it was not long before he was near the outside of the village gate that he found that he was being followed by a number of armed villagers. Not again. The blonde boy turned his heels and took off to avoid the following individuals armed with an array of tools, who were intent on inflicting bodily harm on him. He, however, was running so fast that he was not watching where he was going, and therefore he ran into another person. Oof. Naruto fell to the ground and he looked up and saw someone standing before him, and was wearing robes of a very different nature. The man had deep golden eyes and golden hair with silver streaks in them. The man smiled at Naruto and spoke in a regal tone. You should watch where you are going, young man. Sorry, they're here. There he is. Demon brat. The tall man dressed in regal robes looked at the band of armed villagers with a calm eye as he stood behind the young blonde child, and suddenly in the eyes of the villagers and the young boy, a massive halo of fire surrounded the man quickly, and then they watched as the flame grew and took a living form, almost like a serpent made of pure flames. The serpent rose and roared out at the villagers as the man spoke in a serious and regal tone of authority. If you think I will let this boy come to harm, you are sadly mistaken. Leave now or else. How? What kind of jutsu is that? He created a serpent out of flame without moving his hands. He must be a demon. The man spoke again with a calmer and more patient tone. Demon? No, I am something more than a demon. In me flows power you are not even able to understand yet in your lifetimes. I do not plan to fight you, as you are not my sworn enemies, nor are you and your weapons are of any threat to me even in this form, but I have stated that you will not harm this boy while I am around. Now be gone. The villagers began to back away, and soon took off to a run, and blonde boy looked at his savior with shocked and amazed eyes. The man's face softened considerably, and the serpent of flame faded from sight, and the young boy looked at the man and finally spoke in a very odd tone. Who are you? Me? I am Valen, and you are? My name is Naruto Uzumaki. How did you do that? You didn't use any hand seals at all. Valen looked at the young man with a curious expression and spoke in a very cultured fashion. What do you mean by hand seals, young man? A ninja is supposed to use hand seals to make a jutsu work. That's what I learned back in the academy. Is that some kind of jutsu that does not use hand seals? Hand seals, you mean mystical gestures in my tongue. No, young man, what you have witnessed is a technique that uses no hand seals, if you will. Cool. Can you teach me that technique? Valen grinned and replied. I wish I could, young Naruto, but I am afraid that now is not the best of times for such an action. Please. Naruto did his most cute gesture of pleading, earning a chuckle from the man in robes. However, that changed when the man became serious and stepped in front of the boy as a band of strange individuals dressed in black, wearing armor and carrying swords came on the scene. The strangely garbed people surrounded Naruto and Valen as the villagers came back. No doubt they had called these people to try and deal with Valen. Another band of the strangely garbed men came, and with them was a man who was dressed in regal robes and wore a strange hat on his head with an odd symbol. As the new person of authority appeared, several of the ANBU stood to bar the way of the villagers. Naruto quickly recognized the man before him in the regal robes. Old man. The old man was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of the village of Konoha, and the current leader after the death of the previous leader of the village. He had been the one who cared and protected Naruto when he was young, and it was he who placed down the law concerning an ancient truth that had long been hidden from the young man in question. Hiruzen then spoke to the stranger. Who are you? I am Valen, and from what I can see and sense, you are the leader of this village, am I correct? Yes, my name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, and I am the Hokage of Konoha. Why are you here? I came here merely to rest and move on in my journey, when I saw this boy being chased by a band of the villagers, and they were armed with some weapons. I naturally stepped in as I will not allow any harm to come to a child for whatever reason. I see, it seems that I am in your debt. So it seems. The Hokage looked at Naruto, who was looking at both him and Valen, and he looked back at the stranger. There was something odd about this person before him. There was power, great power that dwarfed his in a good number of ways, and it seemed that the power itself was controlled in a fashion that was unnerving. The elderly Hokage knew that despite his seeming calm, this stranger possessed enough power to rival most if not all ninja at the moment. He had to tread carefully here, and he knew it. I wish to talk to you. Come with me to the tower. Valen considered it and nodded. Very well, I accept your invitation, but what of the boy Naruto? Naruto then spoke out as he saw that this was a chance to finally be in the tower without having to deal with the villagers giving him trouble at the moment. I'll go with Valen, old man. Later. These are very interesting food items. I have never tasted these before. Sarutobi, what are they called? The Hokage looked at Valen as the stranger was currently eating some fish balls at the moment. Valen was amazingly cooperative with him and the ANBU that escorted him. When they had entered the village, the villagers who tried to harm Naruto stayed away from the tall stranger, who apparently was more concerned with the boy's safety than his own, as he gave them a calm but very serious glare that radiated power and strength that made Sarutobi know that this stranger was more than capable in the art of war. Fish balls, they are fish meat that have been specially made into balls. I see, now I must know some things about this young man that I have rescued. From what I have seen, a number of the village's residents have ill intentions towards Naruto. Why is that the case? That is a very long story, and I have made a law that forbids any mention of it. Does it have anything to do with the evil power I sensed in the boy? The Hokage looked at the stranger, who was calmly eating the fish balls, but had a very serious stare, and the Hokage could tell that the man was gently asking for answers to his questions. Normally he would never speak of the past, but this man wielded a power that he had never seen before, and that was saying something for the former genius shinobi known as the Professor. It was years ago, the demon beast known as the Kyuubi attacked Konoha. It was a powerful creature. With a single blow of its tail, forests were destroyed, tsunamis would occur and mountains crushed. Many ninja of this village gave their lives to stop its rampage, and the fourth Hokage, who was my replacement after I retired years ago, gave his life to seal the demon away in a boy. That boy being Naruto, I take it? That is correct. The Yondaime hoped that Naruto would be seen as a hero before he died, the one who would bind the Kyuubi and keep the demon away from all life. But the villagers see him as a demon child. When I took up the office of Hokage once more, I made an edict to prevent anyone from ever speaking of it to others, even their children, but I fear that it will not be enough. As they look at Naruto with angry, hateful, and spiteful eyes, their children will look at him the same way. But what choice did I have? It was either that or they would harm him. It doesn't seem to work as well as you might think, however. Sarutobi nodded at that. The incident that Valen told him was but one of few open attacks on the boy by people too thick-headed with their desire to harm the child. But thankfully the ANBU he had assigned to keep watch over Naruto have done their best to keep him from harm. This day's incident was due to bad luck, and no amount of planning could change that. I know, that is why I worry at times. Iruka does his best to help Naruto live a normal life, but I feel that it will be an uphill battle for Naruto to be accepted as one of the village's people, and as a ninja. Who? Iruka Umino, he is one of the Chunin instructors in our academy, and he is the one who acts as Naruto's father figure. Naruto might prank Iruka at times like everyone else, but he is the one who helps Naruto whenever they are not in the academy grounds. He sounds like a good man. Sarutobi nodded at that. He is. Iruka's parents were killed by the Kyuubi when it attacked, but he treats Naruto like a little brother, and Naruto sees him as a father figure. Despite their bickering, the two of them love ramen just as much. Because he was an orphan like Naruto, Iruka used to have the same lonely life, and because he knows and understands Naruto's life, he cares for him a great deal, despite the past. That is something I know greatly to be true. Valen nodded, and as soon as he was finished eating his food, he spoke to Sarutobi. You wish to know who I am, Sarutobi. I believe that was a question in your mind when you and I met, and I have no doubt that the villagers have told you of my powers. I can assure you that I am no demon, though I am not entirely human either. Sarutobi looked at Valen and was patiently waiting for answers, and he knew that several hidden ANBU were ready to respond should something go wrong here, though he doubted that they would be a match to Valen, as he could tell that whatever Valen truly was, his powers would be far beyond them, and even his. I can show you just who I am, however this will be for your eyes alone. This will not hurt, but brace yourself nevertheless. Valen then placed his hand on Sarutobi's forehead, and the old man gave a slight groan and the ANBU appeared to fight, but only a moment later, Valen moved his hand away and Sarutobi spoke to the ANBU. I am all right. The Hokage looked at Valen and spoke in a very reverent tone. I understand what you are now, but I must ask what you plan to do now? Valen smiled and replied. I have a boy to watch over for a while. In the coming days, Valen was given permission by the Hokage to hang out with Naruto, and Valen did so with a smile. Naruto himself was happy to have a friend, and Valen was certainly a very cool guy as well as Irika. The Chunin instructor and Naruto's father figure had to admit that while Valen was imposing, he was well cultured and mannered as well and seemed to be very comfortable in Naruto's presence, despite the blonde's antics. He was told by the Hokage that Valen was all right, but he had heard the rumors how he could control fire and wield strange powers from the other villagers, but Irika believed the Hokage more than idle gossip, and if the Hokage said that Valen was all right with him, then the Chunin was all right with Valen. Valen, however, was far from idle, as he planned on how to help Naruto, and through unknown means had begun to make needed changes to help Naruto out, and with the Hokage's help, things were going along well enough. Valen had not revealed anything to Naruto, feeling that now was not yet the time for the young man to know everything. He would learn on his own time, and he would be the one to make the decisions for his own future. That was what being human was all about, free will. It made him both smile and mourn when those thoughts came to mind. Humanity always made mistakes, it was natural, and just as there were great heroes and noble people in their kind, there were infamous villains and corrupt people in them as well. The future of humanity always was unique, they could go one way or the other. Some were great champions of peace, justice, compassion, some could be harbingers of war, suffering, corruption, while others were stuck in between or chose to be there themselves. His race was old, older than any living being on this world he was merely visiting. Long before man ever walked the world, his race and many others lived before them, and when humans came, his race were intrigued by them, since while they were doomed to die easily, they were also gifted with great potential and ability. Even the most common of their race could rise to great heights. It was that reason that drove his race to grant humans a rare honor, the blood ascension ceremony. In time it proved to be a mixed result. Some used their powers to do great good in their worlds, while others did great evil with those powers as well. In time, the humans who were blessed with the powers of the ceremony began to squander their powers and even used them to attack the very beings who gave those powers, his race. At first, their attempts were futile, but his race grew tired and eventually left the lands, leaving humanity to carve out their own future. Valen knew that and decided that while his actions were considered treasonous by the more conservative members of his race, his actions could help rectify many things. Unlike the others, he still believed that humans were worthy of power, and he felt that now was the time to reawaken the old bonds that once bonded their race with his. Yet he knew better than to charge ahead. Time and experience had taught him much, and the many millennia that had passed by since the last time his race ever spoke to humans had no doubt wiped the memory of his race from the worlds they were once part of, and the bloodlines they left behind had apparently lost a good portion of their original power, as without the presence of his race and those who underwent the ascension ceremony, portions of power in the blood were lost over time. And it seemed that this village of Konoha had a lot of that long degenerated power. For now, however, he had other ideas and plans, and those deserved his full and undivided attention. As the days turned to weeks, Valen knew that the time was right. His time in this world was coming to a close and his time with Naruto would end, but not before he made the last phase of his plan, and with that in mind, he spoke to Sarutobi a day before he would leave. Suffice to say, the conversation was very much different and the Hokage was not entirely agreeing with the plan, but he promised Sarutobi that he had made the plans and contingencies that were necessary for Naruto. The old Hokage couldn't help but worry, and he couldn't blame Sarutobi for that. However, the plans were already in motion and he trusted him to see them through. Naruto was not happy. "You can't be leaving now of all things. It's going to be my birthday today." Valen smiled a bit and replied, "I will be leaving tomorrow yet Naruto, so for today I am here. By the way, I have something for you to try out." Naruto looked at Valen and handed him a big strange-looking cup, and it was filled with deep red liquid, and it seemed to glow somewhat as well. Something about it seemed to make him feel a bit worried, but he pushed those feelings aside and looked at Valen, who smiled a bit. Valen was among the few to come to his private birthday, as well as Irika, Tuchi and Iam. The two were among the few people apart from Irika, the Hokage, and Valen that Naruto trusted, and they were very good to him. They were the people who made his favorite food and Irika's own as well, and they were very decent and nice people as well. Naruto then spoke to his friend. "What is this? This better not be some weird drink for a joke." Valen laughed at that and replied, "No, I'm not the kind to joke anyone on important days like this, you know. But go ahead and try it, Naruto, it won't hurt you or whatnot. It might make you fall asleep faster though." Naruto looked at the drink and sighed and took it all in and found to be having a sharp, but not a bad taste, sweet and cold, almost like a near frozen fruit drink. As soon as that was over, the party started, and to his amazement, the Hokage himself came and greeted him a happy birthday, making Naruto all the more happy. And when the time came to finally wrap things up after the 4 hours celebration, Naruto went to sleep, and this allowed Sarutobi and Valen to talk with one another at the moment. "So it is done. I hope that you were right in this. The Kyuubi would no doubt try to defeat that power." "I know that, but this demon will have a very hard time with the power. He might contain it, but he cannot kill it. It will be able to meld with Naruto soon enough. As for me, my time has come to leave. Tell Naruto that I will miss him." "I will." Valen then wasted no time and left Konoha, and he was not stopped by anyone in the village, since everyone else with the exception of the ninja on patrol were asleep. As soon as he was a fair distance from Konoha, a blue portal opened and Valen stepped through it and disappeared from Konoha and Naruto's world. In a massive chamber. "Your actions, Valen, are becoming very troubling as of late." Valen merely gave a smile, and another voice came into the play. "Wipe that smile off your face, Valen. You know that you have violated our laws." Valen spoke firmly and with great authority. "Are you saying that my actions, which were independent, have no purpose? You all know that I am not ignorant of the laws. We do not question your wisdom, but we do question the why of your actions. You know that we were not to engage in the ceremony with humans ever since the exodus of our race to this dimension. We could walk and observe, but never interfere without good reason. But this use of the blood ascension ceremony is something that we cannot ignore for any reason. It was my decision to do so, and I have already weighed the possible outcomes personally." "Have you? Have you truly? Do you realize that such power in the hands of humans will bring untold things to world you were in?" "Yes, and I will not take it back. If anything goes wrong, then I will deal with this myself." The beings questioning Valen were robed and hooded, but their eyes glowed with great power as they regarded Valen, and one of them spoke as well. "See that you do, Valen. You are one of the oldest of this conclave and the strongest and wisest, but your irrational actions at times have brought headaches and even disgust in the conclave. However, if you are willing to shoulder this responsibility, then so be it." As the hooded beings left, another figure appeared behind Valen, and Valen turned to face his new companion. The person appeared human, but was covered in a very intricate set of tattoos that were gold on his slightly dark skin color, and had a pair of wings in a bat-like form behind him, and his eyes were glowing slightly in a golden light. The human-like being had deep black hair with stakes of silver in it, as the man wore pants with armor on it along with arm guards and boots. The new arrival then spoke to the disguised dragon, who was still in his human form. "They're not happy with you again, master." Valen chuckled at that and replied, "I guess they would not be. given my rather unique choice of action recently. They have good reason in this case. You know as well I do that they have good merit. Many humans have abused the blood ascension ceremony and used the gifts bestowed upon them for their own selfish desires and their mad quests for power, knowledge and immortality. And we all know the outcome of those things, either we slay them, or those who are of like powers kill them as well. True, but keep in mind Fenrix, that there have been just as many humans who use the powers of the blood ascension ceremony for the right reasons, and have been paragons of light, truth, justice, compassion and peace as well. And it is they who slay those who commit evil and destruction, and so do those born of such unions, as you well know. The winged and tattooed man/dragon nodded at that. I do not question that, master, but there are few of them left in the worlds where we once resided in. There are too few humans like them in this day and age now. True, but that is not an excuse to give up faith and hope for humans. I for one sensed a great destiny before this young child. He can be the savior of his world, or its destroyer. The day I met him and sensed his potential, and his life, I feel in my old bones that he will be the greatest one of his world, and I pray that he will take the path of being its savior, and not its destroyer. You doubt me, Fenrix? I do not, master. I simply wish to know more of this human that you bestowed the blood ascension ceremony to and your blood. He must be truly someone special for you to donate your sanctified and unlocked blood to. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, and the past few days I spent with him are enough for me to deem him utterly worthy of the blood ascension ceremony. He carries a burden with him that will shape him for the rest of his life, and I believe that my blood that now flows in his veins will be the key for him to truly be stronger than anyone. I see, tell me about him. Valen sat down and so did his half-dragon student, and the two discussed the life of Naruto, and as time passed Fenrix looked at his dragon master with some surprise. You bestowed him your ceremonially consecrated blood even if such a being is inside him. That was a great risk you took, master. There is a chance that demon might have sealed the blood when you accomplished the ceremony, and allowed Naruto to drink it. I had thought of that, however. That demon will have a hard time containing that power as it will filter through slowly. You know my lineage after all. I do. I guess that since you have committed this action, then nothing can reverse it. But you know that it is law that should one undergo the blood ascension ceremony, then another must serve as his or her guide, or that person will not be able to truly utilize and control the powers that flow now in their veins, and this Naruto will be no different despite your lineage. He will need a guide, master. Valen nodded and replied. That he does, young Fenrix, and you shall be his guide. I charge you with his education and his training in the ways of the dragon ascendants. Me? Yes, you are a dragon ascendant yourself after all. You know its power and the responsibilities entailed with it, and there is no one else more qualified in my mind than you, my young student. I'm not exactly young anymore, master. Truly, at least by human standards, of course. Time moves much slower for you and I, and we are older than any living mortal. However, my decision has not changed. Will you do this for me? If that is your wish, I shall do as you ask. I just hope that this Naruto that you speak so highly of is truly worth your praise and the blood ascension ceremony that you performed. He is, more than even I can imagine. Take good care of him and teach him well. He can be a true hero with the proper guidance. With that discussion over, Valen watched as Fenrix made his way to the portal that led to Naruto's world. Back in Konoha, Naruto continued with his life in the village and hoped that his guardian would come back soon despite his word that they might not meet again. It was saddening to the young man that his foreign friend was no longer about, but he was happy to have met him, and he smiled as he headed on back to the academy. Unaware that he was now assigned a guardian and teacher for the rest of his life, as he was being watched. Fenrix watched Naruto from a very fair distance using his dragon vision. This allowed him to observe Naruto without being seen by others. He did this as he felt that it was time to observe just what was it about the boy that sparked his master's interest. Open your eyes, Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes, and was surprised to see that Irika's forehead protector was gone, and it was then that Irika told him the words he had longed to hear ever since he had been in the academy. You've graduated, Naruto, you are a genin now. Irika-sensei. So the boy knows his burden now. but was not driven to anger by it, and he has managed to fight the one who is like family to him. Good. Fenrich said as he observed Naruto and Irika from afar. He had been concerned when the traitor Mizuki had made his moves on Naruto, but he was impressed as his future student had not given himself over to hatred and rage in hearing that Irika cared for him for real despite the past and considered him a good ninja of Konoha even if he makes mistakes and more. At least his heart was in the right place, and that made him a real man, not a beast. That impressed Fenrich and made Naruto cry as the Dragon Ascendant watched as Naruto fought Mizuki, and he had saved the man he considered family. It seemed that the boy would reach his dreams, and there was good promise in the boy after all. He also took the time to study Konoha and its people well, to know what was it about this simple warrior village that sparked the interest of his master, and it seemed that a considerable portion of the people here had good talent and ability, and he was interested in the bloodlines in this village, though compared to the dormant bloodline in his soon-to-be student, theirs would need a lot of work to come close to even a fraction of the power lying dormant in Naruto. However, Fenrich had his worries to think about as he looked at the happy scene between Naruto and Irika, who he knew well enough. From now on, we're rivals. Naruto and Konohamaru looked at one another and the two gave grins at one another, and they parted as good friends and rivals as they were getting ready for the soon-to-come time that they would fight one another for the title of Hokage. Fenrich looked on and noted the change in Konohamaru when the boy associated with his future charge. The boy had finally understood that defeating his grandfather would never earn him the title. He had to work hard and train hard to be a true successor to the title of Hokage, and if he had not associated with Naruto, then it would have never sunk into his mind. His charge was proving to be a very interesting person. Fenrich couldn't help but chuckle a little as he watched Naruto work with his new team. This Sasuke was supposed to possess the Sharingan, a bloodline trait that granted considerable abilities to its owner, though the Dragon Ascendant had not seen it in action yet. The boy was cool and aloof and took great pride in his training, and Naruto disliked him for it. Sakura was a smart girl and possessed a considerable level of chakra control, and was the best in written scores and intelligent. Fenrich could see that while Sakura didn't seem to be special, she had other abilities that were different from the others. He observed Kakashi and admitted that while the Jonin was late considerably, loved reading perverted books, and more, the man had great promise as a ninja, and according to what he had researched about the Jonin sensei, he was a good teacher for them all at the moment. And he had to admit that this Jonin would be interesting to see in action. Fenrich nodded as he watched Naruto speak with Haku in the forest. He had been concerned when Haku attempted to harm Naruto, but he was curious why he stopped. He listened to the conversation between the two, and while he had a feeling that he should move in, he chose instead to watch once more, to see what will happen. Later. As Naruto and his team left Wave Country, Fenrich smiled all the more as he looked at how well the boy had grown, and he would prove to be a very interesting student to teach. However, the Dragon Ascendant had his worries. The Kyuubi would no doubt have restrained the power of his master's ceremonially consecrated blood early, as his master had told him, and despite the power of his master's blood, it had been held off by the Kyuubi. Until the demon's hold was removed, then there was no way for Naruto to gain the full powers bestowed upon him by his master Valen. For now, all he could do at this moment was wait and observe as the team headed back to Konoha. Damn it! Fenrich swore as he watched the battle between this grass genin, who was more than what he seemed in the Forest of Death. He had observed Naruto and his team barely dodged the bullet in the first exam stage, and now here they were in the Forest of Death, which reminded the Dragon Ascendant of the Forest of Eternal Sorrow centuries before in his time. He observed them and watched as Naruto fought with this grass genin alongside Sasuke, but in the end it was a difficult battle. However, he spotted the grass genin striking the area where the seal that held the Kyuubi was located, and the strike given by the being. Fenrich stopped just about as he was to enter the fray after so long in observing his young charge when he sensed something flowing in Naruto's body. He focused his eyes on Naruto's, seeing past his clothes, skin, flesh and body, into his very being, and saw something that he had hoped to see in a very long while. The sight of his master's blood flowing and mixing with Naruto's own blood, the glowing blood of a dragon king, mixing with that of a mortal body, granting power to the one it was given to, the birth of a dragon ascendant, an event never seen by others in nearly 3,000 years. So, it has begun, but the boy's mind has not adapted yet and neither has the body. This is not good. He watched as Sakura tried her best to protect both Sasuke and Naruto, and he could only wait and see what will happen and hope that something good will come out of this, despite his reservations in the matter. He observed as the Sound Genin were about to attack, and then the arrival of the other Konoha teams that he had seen to help them. He gave a growl at the sight of Sasuke being controlled by the mark of that grass Genin and watched as the man attacked without mercy and injured his attackers, and he watched as Sakura managed to stop him, but it was then that he sensed the upwell of power inside Naruto, but sensed that it was growing too fast. Fenrix quickly knew that the time to act was now. It was then that Dosu and everyone in the area was treated to the sound of a massive and primordial scream. The sound filled the forest and the sound was enough to make all of them freeze, and even Lee was shocked back to being away, and then they turned. Ahaha! Naruto was awake, but gripped in pain and rage as he thrashed about in a fury, as golden-colored mist flowed from his body. Sasuke, Sakura, Ino, Shikamaru, Chuji, Niji, Lee, Tenten, and Dosu could only look in shock as Naruto roared in pain as he moved about and there was golden mist that was seeping out of his very skin. The blonde Genin roared in a very inhuman way, and was thrashing about as if he was being burned alive internally. Naruto, my god, what's happening to him? What's wrong with the dobe? Did that ninja have something to do with this? What the heck is this, and why is it Naruto's chakra is expanding? Naruto suddenly tore off his upper clothes and exposed his upper body, and to the shock of everyone, there were glowing white symbols on his body, moving like living flame all over him, and then they began to glow golden as the mist seemed to fade back into Naruto's body, and to shock of just about everyone, Naruto was growing right in front of them. The glowing energy turned into an intricate series of tattoos that were unlike anything they had ever seen before, and there on Naruto's chest were 5 glowing points of light. One was deep red like blood, another was as white as a cloud in the sky, another was a deep blue as the sky and water, another was deep brown like the color of earth, and the last was deep yellow, like gold itself. The lights faded into spots that still seemed to glow as Naruto keeled over with his hands covering his face as his body was covered in gold tattoos with silver lining. His hair was longer now and seemed to shimmer for some reason. Naruto then moved his hands away and spread them out in a roar that made the very air vibrate with great intensity, and then he revealed his face, also covered in tattoos which did not remove the whisker marks he had, and his eyes were glowing deep blue. The blonde ninja suddenly growled once more as he charged right at Dosu and the other Sound ninja, in a speed that dwarfed that of Sasuke when the flame-like tattoos came alive. What the? Dosu barely in enough time to leap back with Kin and Zaku with him when the tree behind him was blown to splinters by Naruto's punch as the blonde Genin was roaring out in absolute battle rage, almost like a berserker. The leader of the Sound Genin could only look in shock at how easily the blonde had reduced the tree into kindling. My god, did Orochimaru brand the blonde with the cursed seal too? No, that is not the cursed seal, it's something else entirely, and that power, it's enormous. Even Sasuke's chakra in the cursed seal form can't match that level. We have to escape now. Naruto leaped out at Dosu and lashed out with a powerful wave of pure destructive chakra that the ninja barely evaded as it reduced a nearby tree and a boulder into nothing. Naruto stopped and roared in anger as he looked about to seek his prey. The other ninja were shocked by this change in Naruto and tried to stay away. Sakura stepped forward and spoke carefully. Naruto, what's wrong with you? Ino, who had fully recovered from the technique she used on the Sound Genin Kin, was shocked that Sakura was actually trying to talk to Naruto, who was somehow in a feral rage. She got up and shouted. Forehead girl! What are you doing? Get away from there! Naruto turned and his glowing gaze was aimed right at Sakura, who stopped as she was paralyzed with fear as something in Naruto's glowing gaze was primal and deadly. The blonde ninja opened his mouth and out came silver mist from his mouth, and he clenched his fists, and was about to move. Sakura barely had time to react when Naruto was now right in front of her in a heartbeat. she had barely moved an inch, and despite being nearly 20 feet from her, Naruto closed the gap instantaneously. My god, he moved so fast I didn't even see it. However, Naruto didn't attack Sakura at first, merely gazed at her, and then raised his right hand and his clawed fingers touched Sakura's cheek for a moment, and he growled softly, making the others tense up even more. Somehow, Naruto was not attacking Sakura, but that could all change. It was then that a voice was heard. Naruto. Naruto and the others turned to see a robed and hooded man appear. The man was taller than any of them, almost the same height as Kakashi himself. The man removed his hood and robes and showed that he was wearing pants, armored boots, and forearm guards as well as a simple shirt. The man suddenly growled in a way that resembled Naruto, and to the shock of the ninjas present, the man's body was suddenly covered in the same gold and silver mist, and in a moment, he too had the same tattoos as Naruto did, though in a different pattern than the ones Naruto had. The new arrival had his own eyes glow the same way Naruto's did, but his gaze was deep green. Naruto roared out and charged, and the man did likewise, and both began to attack one another. Their punches connected and unleashed a powerful shockwave that knocked the ninja down to the ground with sheer force as the wind seemed to explode from the blows the two unleashed on each other. Sasuke shook his head and looked on with shock evident on his face. How can that dope's blow become that powerful? Sakura was greatly concerned as she looked to see the two facing each other off in combat. Questions were everywhere in her mind, but two were the most serious questions that were in her mind as she witnessed what was going on before her. What's going on? Who is that guy? The two traded punches and kicks at one another, and the sounds of the impact were enough to make everyone hearing it wince as it sounded very painful, but the two continued to throw attacks at one another at the moment. The ninja watched as Naruto's punch was evaded, and a nearby boulder was shattered and reduced to powder in a heartbeat as the two warriors charged at one another. Naruto was totally focused on the new arrival, and this allowed them to all hide. Neji deactivated his Byakugan as he was nearly blinded by the massive bonfire of power that flooded Naruto's veins and chakra pathways. That power was incredible. He didn't have that kind of power when he was in the Chunin exam's first stage. What is going on here? The two traded blow after blow, and the area before them was now a ruined battleground, as if two titanic forces had clashed her and tore up the lands before them in a violent and brutal fashion. However, the new stranger fought with a precision and focus that showed that despite Naruto's power, he was not just equal to Naruto, but more than a match in power and also more skilled. However, the warrior had other ideas. This is not going to end well. I might have gained his full attention, but his power is still too wild. That demon must have heavily sealed the blood of my master greatly, allowing it to grow without adapting to his body properly. At this stage he will not be able to fully control it. I must restrain him and suppress his powers quickly before he ends up ripping this entire forest apart and attack anyone close to him, including his friends. The warrior dodged Naruto's next barrage of kick and quickly leaned backward as Naruto racked the air with his claws, and it was then that the stranger took out a pair of forearm guards and clamped them on Naruto's arms. Instantly the forearm guards glowed and latched on Naruto, and Naruto roared out in surprise and back away, and to the amazement of the others, they all saw the tattoos on Naruto glow once more and rapidly fade away and retract back into Naruto's body. Naruto thrashed about and still roared and growled until he suddenly stopped and turned, allowing them to see that his eyes were back to their normal form, and then Naruto collapsed, falling unconscious and snoring once more. Thank goodness I made it in time. Sakura directed her attention to the new arrival who fought with Naruto, and have the same tattoos as Naruto did. She knew that somehow, this person, or whatever he was, had been able to restrain Naruto and bring her teammate back to normal was not a threat. If he was, then none of them would be alive at this moment. Without hesitating, the pink-haired ninja stepped out from her hiding place and spoke. Hey! Who are you? The person turned, and without effort his tattoos faded and his glowing eyes returned to normal, and he then spoke. My name is Fenrix. It's safe now, you all can come out. Your companion Naruto's been restrained by the bracers, and is back to normal. All he needs to do now is rest a bit. The other ninja got out of their hiding places, just as Kiba, Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata arrived on the scene. As they gathered, they looked at the sleeping blonde ninja who a few minutes before was covered in tattoos, unleashing terrifying amounts of pure power and was now able to devastate the landscape, and then they directed their attention to Fenrix, who kneeled down and checked Naruto's condition with a glowing hand. The blood is now melding with his properly, but the power is still too wild. He will have to keep the bracers on until he adapts properly to his newly awakened bloodline. Sasuke was shocked by this, and so was everyone in the group. Naruto, the class clown, the least skilled ninja of them all, the loudmouth, actually had a bloodline? Sasuke then spoke. Who are you? Fenrix merely observed Naruto and spoke. Like I said, Sasuke Uchiha, my name is Fenrix. How do you know my name? I know a great deal about you, Sasuke, and you as well, Sakura Hirono, along with everyone here at this moment in time. I know that the two of you who have the white eyes are both cousins with the names Hinata Hyuga and Niji Hyuga respectively, and you both are members of the Hyuga clan who have the special trait known as the Byakugan. I know that you, Sasuke, are the user of the Sharingan, and Sakura is the best in term of chakra control in the team that comprises you, her, and Naruto. I also know that the young man with the puppy on his head is Kiba Inuzuka, and the dog's name is Akamaru, and both are members of the Inuzuka family, famous for their alliance with canine familiars. Both of them are in the same team as young Hinata there, and with Shino Aburame, whose clan are known for their unique alliance with the destruction bugs that inhabit their bodies. I am also aware of Niji's team, comprising of Tenten, who is considered to be the best weapons expert in her team, as well as young Rock Lee, who's unable to perform ninjutsu and genjutsu, but is a master of taijutsu. I also know that the one who loves to eat is Chuji Akamichi of the Akamichi clan, who can manipulate their body size easily. The other is Shikamaru Nara, who possesses a very high IQ despite his laziness, and is a user of shadow manipulation. And lastly, the blonde lady is Ino Yamanaka, whose family are known for being able to switch minds with their enemies. I know everything about you all. The revelation that he knew all of them, and even their bloodline traits, made the ninja even more curious as to who he was at this moment. Fenrix, however, pressed on and gave the ninja a very simple smile that denoted that he knew a lot more than he let on. I even know who your respective teachers are as well, and more besides. The ninja were very tense at this as Fenrix looked back at Naruto, and it was Sakura who spoke. Are you a spy or something? No, I know these things because I have been observing this village for some time, but without any malice or ill will. You are interesting subjects and people to boot, but my real target was Naruto here. After all, he is going to be my student in the near future. What do you mean? Fenrix stood up and replied. Naruto is the inheritor of an ancient power, older than anything you all can imagine. Within him flows the ceremonially consecrated blood of beings more powerful than any who walk the land. Naruto has in his body Dragon King blood, and that makes him a truly powerful dragon ascendant, just like me. What? It was then that Naruto began to wake up, and Fenrix smiled at this. There was much to do at the moment. Things had been explained, and more besides, but now that Naruto's body was beginning to adapt and grow stronger with the power flowing in his veins, then the real training will begin. Knowledge is power. In the Forest of Death. Kiba couldn't help but shake his head a bit as he, Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata moved on to make it to the tower as they already had their own scrolls to enter the place. The young Inuzuka couldn't help but remember the words spoken by the stranger named Fenrix. I can't believe that Naruto has that kind of power. Who would have thought he'd have that? It is odd that Naruto never had that power back in the academy, but my destruction bugs panicked greatly when they sensed that power. I guess, but how the heck does he have a bloodline? He certainly never showed it back in the academy. Hinata was silent for the most part, but she couldn't help but wonder what the future was for her long-time crush. She hoped that he would be fine and would soon make it to the tower as he had done so much to make it this far, and to not make it would really hurt him. Her thoughts then wandered to the stranger who was there with Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke at the moment, but for now, her team had to worry about getting to the tower. They were not the only ones as Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji were moving along as well as the team of Lee, Niji, and Tenten. As they made their way to the tower, they couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold for them as they were getting closer to being Chunin, while they thought of what will happen when they would meet with Naruto and the members of his team. Shikamaru had to admit that he had thought that Naruto's team would be easy to deal with even with Sasuke present. Now he was happy he didn't push through with that idea. Meanwhile, at a clearing, Naruto looked at the ruins that were once his favorite clothes, and was not the least bit happy at the moment, and it was understandable as he didn't have any spare clothes to use at the moment and had been given a spare shirt by Fenrix. The young man in question was hauling a pair of massive tigers that appeared to be dead with their necks broken. And the three genin could only watch with some queasiness how the man methodically skinned the dead animals and began to cook the meat. Fenrix looked at the three and spoke. You three can relax for now. You have had a very busy day, and you need to get your strength back as much as you can. Naruto couldn't help himself and spoke. Who are you exactly? Fenrix grinned at that and replied. I suggest you three get some food in your stomachs before we talk about the past. You'll need the energy for the mission of getting the scroll you need at the moment, and you still have one scroll to keep safe. So I doubt that fighting on an empty stomach is a good idea. The growling stomachs of all three genin convinced them that he was right, and they dug into the cooking meat, and while they were not big fans of eating tiger meat, the food was at least good to the taste buds and worth eating at the moment. Naruto and Fenrix, however, were eating like mad as they ate as much food as they could get, surprising both Sasuke and Sakura. The two were finally eating enough meat to feed at least 6 people, and the two could only look on in wonder. As soon as the two placed aside their plates, both gave explosive burps and Sakura couldn't help but chuckle a bit at the sight. Fenrix laughed a bit and decided that now was the time to tell Naruto a portion of the information that he carried. Now you are wondering who I really, then I will tell you. You three already know my name and what I am, at least at first. So therefore, I will explain as best I can. On what I am, I was once human, like the three of you, but I underwent a ceremony that granted me the power and ability of a dragon. It was known as the Blood Ascension Ceremony. This ceremony is ancient, older than anything that exists, and has not been practiced in nearly 9 millennia. Naruto scratched his head at that and asked, What's millennia? Millennia. A millennia is a number of years, namely 1,000, so this special ceremony has not been done in nearly that long, 5,000 years. The dragon race was the first and the only race to have this powerful ritual. This ritual was made by the dragons to pass their powers on to other beings, namely humans. Long ago, when humans were still starting in the building of their civilization, dragons took notice of them, and were interested in humanity. They saw that while humans were a short-lived race, and could die easily, they had great potential and drive, and the dragon race decided to give their powers to humans. These humans became the dragon ascendants like myself. Sasuke listened as he couldn't help but wonder just what was going on, and how exactly did Naruto fit in all this. Sakura was the one who asked the question. How does Naruto fit in all this? In due time Sakura Hirono, the dragon ascendants rose in power, and they used their powers in many ways. Some used their powers for the betterment of their people, while others did it for their own desires and for destruction. This made dragons realize that humans were capable of great good and great evil in equal measure. Over the years that passed, the humans who gained the powers of the blood ascension ceremony were able to forge vast civilizations and cultures, but as time passed, later generations of humans believed that they could become even more powerful than the dragon race by killing them and forcing them to give them the secrets of the blood ascension ceremony, so they would be truly invincible. They attacked the dragons? Yes, their efforts were clumsy and foolish. Even the ascendants who were tempted with the idea of surpassing their former benefactors were easily defeated by the older and wiser dragons, and their leaders, the dragon kings, as well as the ascendants who were against the whole idea. However, this signaled to the dragon race that they had to leave humanity to their fates and carve their own future without interference. Thus was the beginning of the dragon race from the world of men, as well as the other races in their charge who were willing to follow them. Even a large number of ascendants decided to leave the world with their dragon benefactors. Sasuke was getting a bit impatient. He wanted to know just how Naruto got a bloodline that he had never heard of before. Just how does Naruto fit in all this? We don't need the history lessons. Fenrix gave a dark glare at Sasuke that was enough to silence the Uchiha as the eyes of the dragon ascendant took their glowing green hue. This made Naruto and Sakura nervous as they had no idea how the situation will turn out. Fenrix then spoke seriously and showed his displeasure for Sasuke's actions. If you are so curious to know how your teammate fits in all this, then I hate to disappoint you Sasuke Uchiha, but you will have to wait. All things will be explained in due time and not before. So hold your tongue and listen first. Your world's history is tied to this story as well, so do me, your teammates, and yourself a good favor and be silent. Sasuke would have normally ignored the warning, but something about the change in Fenrix's demeanor told the Uchiha that he was treading on dangerous ground, and so he nodded as he held his tongue. Fenrix relaxed and took a deep breath to relax his own thoughts and continued to speak. The dragon ascendants who were left behind thought that their already existing power was all they needed, but they were partially wrong in that assumption, since while they retained their powers, those powers were not able to be properly unlocked to their full potential after succeeding generations. Over time, the powers they once possessed eventually lost a great deal of its original power and potency, and without the teachings of the dragon race, as well as their knowledge, the powers were either heavily degraded or were eventually left to die and never return into the world of men. Not all the powers, however, faded and still existed and became bloodline inheritances. In the language of your world is Kekai Genkai, I believe. Sasuke was shocked to hear this, and Fenrix spoke to Sasuke directly. Now do you understand what I meant about your world's history being tied to what I was telling about the dragon race and the blood ascension ceremony? Are you saying that? Yes, this world, your world, thousands of years ago was part of the many worlds inhabited by dragons, and they too passed their powers to the humans who lived here. Your ancient ancestors were also dragon ascendants, and like before, attempted to wrestle the power away from the dragon race, forcing their benefactors to leave, and those ascendants began to lose the full potency of their powers, but their powers did not die out quickly like the others, and their bloodlines were not destroyed. Despite being degraded, What this means is that your Sharingan, in fact, all the known and still to be seen Kekkei Genkai of this world, are actually the degraded remains of the old dragon ascendant blood that existed thousands of years ago. Sasuke was stunned by this, and he couldn't help but feel angry at the thought that his clan's most respected Kekkei Genkai was being seen as a degraded form of power. His people had become legends with the Sharingan, and he would not allow that fact to be downplayed by this stranger. You're calling the Sharingan of my clan to be nothing but a watered-down and weak power? Fenrix was not intimidated by Sasuke's words and replied. I am not insulting it, I am merely stating what I know and what I have learned. You're lying. Why would I lie? What would I possibly gain by it? And do not think to attack me out of revenge or anger, Sasuke. I might not look like it, but what you have witnessed before is merely a tiny fraction of my true power. I am already 1,500 years old by human standards in years, and I am far more powerful and skilled than Naruto despite his status as a dragon ascendant like me. I have more power and ability than you could ever hope to accomplish in your lifetime, so if you decide to fight me, know that I can easily crush you like an annoying insect. So I suggest you calm down and keep in mind that I have no interest in you as an enemy for that matter. So don't waste either my time or yours, for both our sakes. Naruto was getting even more confused. Wait a minute here. When did I ever become a dragon ascendant? I don't recall ever taking part in this ceremony, or even meeting a dragon, so how the heck can I be an ascendant? Sakura nodded at that as she wanted to know even more on this mystery. I have to agree with Naruto. If what you said was true, then there have been no dragons in our world for nearly 10,000 years, and if the blood ascension ceremony has not been done for that long, how could Naruto become an ascendant if there are no dragons in our world, and they are the only ones who can make the ceremony work? Fenrix smiled. Finally, you are asking the right questions. Tell me something, Naruto. Have you ever met a man by the name of Valen in your younger years? Naruto thought back as the name was very familiar to him, and as he thought hard, it was not long before he recalled the foreigner who had become his friend for a number of months before he had left on his birthday all those years ago. Yeah, I remember someone with that name. He was so cool. I remember him scarring a number of villagers with that cool fire serpent jutsu that used no hand seals. It was awesome. I asked him to teach it to me, but he said he couldn't. Do you know him? Fenrix nodded. Yes, I do. Valen was my master, and a dragon king, one of the 5 rulers of the dragon race. No one was more shocked than Naruto himself. No way, Valen was a dragon? But he didn't look the least like a dragon. He was human? Dragons have many powers, one of which was the ability to take a human appearance, unlike ascendants who were humans to begin with and thus can take a dragon-like appearance once their powers and bodies had fully matured and at their highest levels of power. He was able to begin the blood ascension ceremony and bestowed his consecrated blood to you on your birthday, when you last saw him. Do you remember the cup that he handed to you during your birthday? Naruto recalled that, and he was shocked even more. I drank his blood? Yes, and it was already consecrated, thus you were able to receive its power in full form, and that makes you the very first dragon ascendant to walk this world. However, the reason your powers awakened late in your life was that due to certain circumstances, your dragon blood was sealed away in your body, and it was only now that it awakened. Fenrix sighed and thought back on the other dragon ascendants who woke late to their powers for different reasons, and what were the results of that. Naruto then looked at the bracers that were on his hands, and Fenrix noted that and spoke. Those bracers are specially crafted and enchanted. When you awakened to your dragon blood, you were not yet mentally and spiritually strong enough to control your power and your Dragon King bloodline, which resulted in you becoming a berserker, and you attacked others who you saw. If I had not stepped in, you might have turned on your friends. What? Why couldn't I remember this? Your human mind had not adapted well to the power, and you regressed into a more bestial state. And do not think you are the first. There have been others who were late in awakening to their hidden powers and their bloodlines, and they had to wear these bracers which were placed on them by their mentors. These are not meant to be permanent, however. Once you have developed the mental and spiritual strength, the bracers will no longer restrain your powers. They will eventually unlock themselves, and you can remove them, but until you develop the control and focus needed, then they remain with you. He then looked at Sasuke, who was still fuming mad, and replied towards Naruto and Sasuke. Also, since this is your first time using a bloodline such as this, Naruto, you will have to start from scratch. Unlike the Sharingan, which has been handed down from generation to generation among the Uchiha clan, your power is still in its infancy, and is not yet fully grown. In dragon terms, you're still very much a hatchling, and thus, your powers will need to be refined and perfected. So I have to learn how to use this power properly. Correct, that is why Master Valen sent me to be your guardian and teacher in the ways of the Dragon Ascendants. Another thing that I can tell you is that as a Dragon Ascendant, you can also undertake the Blood Ascension ceremony in order to pass a portion of your already existing power to another individual, to make him a Dragon Ascendant as well. That got Sasuke's attention right off the bat as he looked at both Naruto and Fenrix. However, this is something that is not to be taken lightly. You have to grow in power, knowledge, skill, and more before you can do so. If you attempt to do the Blood Ascension ceremony without the proper training, maturity in body, mind, spirit, and experience, plus without the fully mature powers, the results could be disastrous for both you and that one you wish to pass your powers to. How disastrous would it be? Sasuke asked, and Fenrix simply replied. You both can either suffer intense pain both physically and mentally, as well as crippling yourselves and being reduced into invalids, or if things go really wrong, then the both of you will die. The silence was deafening at that, and as soon as the reality set in, Fenrix then decided that now was the time to explain to Naruto some of the basic powers that he possessed at the moment due to his dragon blood. However, even with the bracers on, you are already unleashing signs of your powers, at least not totally visible ones. Hand me a kunai. Naruto and the others looked at one another and were very hesitant, but Sakura handed Fenrix one, and he took the weapon and spoke to Naruto. Naruto, give me your arm. Naruto did so, and before he could blink, Fenrix grabbed his arms and stabbed him with the kunai. The ninjas panicked and quickly drew weapons while Naruto was released, and Fenrix laughed as he showed them the kunai, which was broken and several of its blade was actually shattered at the moment on the ground. The others were surprised by this, and Naruto looked at his arm and saw that there was not a single drop of blood, not even a scratch. How? That, Naruto, is but the very first sign of your body adapting to the power that now flows in your veins. You might not see it, but there are tiny and near invisible scales that are melding with your skin at the moment. That is dragon skin, and it is a basic power that all dragon ascendants are given as they adapt to their powers. As you can see, this power is able to make your skin similar to dragon skin, which is a lot tougher than normal skin, and can withstand blades and powerful forms of physical and magical attacks. Naruto was looking at his uninjured arm, and was smiling a bit as the ramifications began to set into his mind at the moment. So I am invincible? Not exactly. While the dragon skin may make you stronger and tougher, you are not immortal or unstoppable. the ability makes you much harder to injure, but specially made blades with enchantments, and the attacks of those who have very high levels of physical and spiritual strength can still injure you, but if anyone attempts to attack you with multiple blades and attacks, then you cannot be harmed. This power is different since as humans, ascendants do not lose their sense of touch like dragons do. Ha! Normal dragon scales grow on dragons every time, and when that happens, they slowly lose their sense of touch, so they sacrifice their sense of touch for the added defense. Ascendants will have that toughness, but not in the same degree as that of dragons themselves, and as such, don't lose their sense of touch. Do you get the idea? Naruto nodded at that, and he was even more curious about what other abilities he had under his command at the moment. What else do I have? You have the basic senses of a dragon: increased sight range, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. Physically, you have increased strength, though at the moment that is controlled by the bracers, as well as increased speed and stamina. You will develop also a dragon's immunity to illusions over time, as well as their resistance to various elements, toxins, and weakness. Will I even grow wings? Eventually you will, and they will be in the form of energy, but at the moment you have no wings at the moment. Those take time to grow properly and also to control. You certainly don't need those wings to suddenly sprout out in the middle of a busy street, you know. Anyway, here's one power you might find useful when the time comes. Do you see that tree over there? Naruto turned in the direction that Fenrix was pointing and nodded. Good, now then, imagine your breath in your lungs becoming as hot and as intense as fire, and then unleash your breath at that tree. Naruto did so, and to his shock, and that of the others, his breath did become flame as a massive tongue of fire was unleashed from his mouth at that exact moment of action, and the tree was easily incinerated in a matter of moments by the sudden unleashing of flame on it. All that was left of the once massive tree was a pile of pure ash. Naruto clasped his mouth in shock as he looked at the large tree that he had just reduced into nothing but ash in merely a moment. As soon as he was feeling a bit calmer, he turned to speak to Fenrix, who watched in approval, while Sasuke and Sakura were looking on with great surprise, and as soon as he was able to recover from the sight, he spoke to Fenrix. Did I just breath fire?